Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. It's Son of a Gun Gourmet. In this video, I'm going to show you how to shuck an oyster, and I'm going to go through some ideas on garnishes to serve with them. Remember to hit like and subscribe, and let's start cooking. The first thing to note when you buy oysters is how they are packed. They shouldn't be held in a container with an airtight seal, or wrapped in plastic. They need to breathe, so they should be stored in a wooden or cardboard crate similar to how these are. The next thing you'll want to check is how clean they are. They'll usually say, just like these ones did, that they've been pre-washed. But as you'll be able to see when I start scrubbing these, they may have just been soaked, but definitely not a thorough cleaning, which is important not only for the presentation, but also to keep dirt out of the oyster as you're shucking them. So to properly clean them, I'll put them into a clean sink and run a bit of cold water over them. And one by one, I'll scrub both sides lightly with a brand new green scouring pad. You don't want one that you've been scrubbing pots and pans with. At that point, you're doing more harm than good. If you're wondering what kind of oysters these are, they're called Beaujolais. They're from New Brunswick on the east coast of Canada. I really like East Coast oysters because they're generally on the brinier side, and Beaujolais are exceptionally light and they have an almost champagne aroma to them. They're also great to bring into a restaurant or serve at a party because with the way that they're farmed, they come out nearly uniform and they have a very classic looking shell. West Coast oysters are also great though. There's Cushis and Kumamotos, and they're sweet and plump and usually have a note of melon to them. I just find that East Coast oysters have a bit more complexity that comes with the longer growing period. An East Coast oyster will usually take about 4 years before it's ready, whereas some West Coast oysters only take a year. And to go with these classy looking oysters, we're going to make mignonette, a very classic garnish. Start by fine dicing half a shallot and throw it directly into a saucepan. Mignonette is a condiment traditionally served with raw oysters. It consists of minced shallots, cracked pepper, and vinegar, so it could have a ton of different variations. But it must contain peppercorns and shallots because its name is actually a French term that refers to the cracked pepper in the sauce. Now I'm going to take a teaspoon of the aforementioned black peppercorn and add it to my mortar and just break it up. I want it to still be coarse, I don't want a fine powder, and add it to the saucepan. Next, add 2 tablespoons of rice wine vinegar. And the last ingredient is a little bit more than a 1/4 cup of red wine. Turn the saucepan on high heat and bring it to a boil. I let it come up to temp for about 30 seconds and then I just take it off and cool it down. But mignonette's not the only thing we're going to serve with these oysters. You can't have fresh oysters without lemon. De-seeding your lemons is a nice touch for presentation and is really easy. Start by quartering it, and then cut into each quarter on an angle, removing the white center. And once you've done that, you could basically just pick the seeds out with the tip of your knife. And then just cut each quarter in half so you have nice little wedges rather than big chunky quarters. When serving oysters, I recommend putting them on crushed ice, but there are other ways you could do it. Assuming you are using crushed ice, arrange it flat, and a good trick to keep it cold longer is to sprinkle a bit of salt over it. Okay, now to shuck the oysters. All you want to do is work the oyster knife into the hinge that connects the top and bottom shells. Once you have it in there, turn the knife like a door handle to pop it open. The oyster shell is also connected near the lip, So once I pop open the hinge on the bottom, I'll hold the shell open with my thumb and scrape the oyster from the shell, making sure to leave the meat intact. When shucking oysters, technique is key. You don't need to apply much force at all. And especially while you're learning, make sure to do this safely. Oyster knives may not be as sharp as other knives, but they could still really hurt. Hold the oysters in a cloth as you see me doing here. Not only will it protect you from stabbing yourself, but the oyster shells are very rough, and one slip while you're trying to shuck could give you a pretty nasty cut. There are two main ways to tell if an oyster is good or not. First is that the meat should be juicy. If it looks dry, it's a bad sign. Next is the smell. It should smell like the ocean. It should not smell fishy. Sometimes you'll accidentally chip the shell and the hinge won't really be there anymore. All is not lost. Just wiggle the knife into where the hinge used to be, like you see me doing here, until it has something to grab onto. Then you could pop it open just like normal. Learning how to shuck oysters does take practice, but it's really rewarding because once you know how, you don't need to go to a restaurant anymore to get your oysters. You could pick the ones that you want, not the ones the restaurant wants to serve you. Or an even better reason is you can invite your friends over on a nice summer day for a whole platter with some cocktails and have a great afternoon. One last garnish that I like to serve with oysters is some freshly grated horseradish. And that's it. I hope this video was helpful to you, and I hope you want to go out and start cracking open your favorite oysters rather than having someone else do it for you. Remember to like, subscribe, and keep on cooking.